this is the upper echelons now. There's not going to be that kind of leeway for error.
Yeah, no, completely. The margin for error, like you said, is going to be so small between these two teams. And any foot put wrong, and you saw in the last game, TCA versus Choke, it was a singular mistake, a singular wrong decision through the entire game for TCA. And that's kind of how League of Legends is now. You can make comebacks, but unless you're really touting a heavy late game swinging team, it is difficult to make comebacks. And you often need a lot of wave clear, you need a lot of stalling presence, you need a lot of ability to turtle to make that happen. Because if you get behind in the early mid game, teams find it so easy to snowball during these patches. You know, this 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, all of which have been very snowball heavy, and that's kind of why games are extending now, not because the game favors it, but because people just don't want to make those early game mistakes, so they play safer, and the games generally extend a little bit longer.
Yeah, and I mean, we're seeing a whole lot of these games all feel like it's usually a mid-game team composition that's looking to try and achieve that snowball up against a team who's playing more late-game style composition, and they're trying to make sure that they make as few mistakes as possible in that sort of first 25 minutes, and then they can really start to get into the match. But let's take a look at the match that we have at hand here. The bans have already come on through. First pick is locked in as Lucian, which I would assume will go down into that AD carry unless Gash and Slash is doing his best Cabochard impression. And let's take a look at the bans. We've got Gangplank Poppy and Quinn coming out from MnM, and then on the other side we have Zilean, Malphite and Fiora.
So Exertus not interested in going up against Nocturne. Half Past Thor Zilean there. That will be taken straight off the table. It was their first ban.
Can't say I'm massively surprised by that
I can't say I'm massively surprised either. It also puts Half Past Thor onto some of his other champions. Now, interestingly enough, when you look at Half Past Thor's champion pool, it is very unusual compared to what you'd expect in the mid lane meta. He does play meta champions, but you know, given his choice, he'll be going for things like the Ziggs, you know, like those kind of champions that, although have received recent buffs, aren't exactly carry-heavy champions. He likes very heavy wave clear, very, very heavy farm presence and late-game scaling.
Well, Ziggs is a perfect example of his playstyle. Like, when we last saw Ziggs regularly in the meta, it was played in a way that was kind of like, we will stall forever. You cannot ever siege us, you cannot ever push our towers, because wherever you are on the map, you're going to be able to use that Mega Inferno Bomb to just clear the big waves, and then you can just stay in whatever lane and just AoE wave clear over and over again with basically no cooldown, very low mana cost. So that's the kind of style that we're likely to see out of him. But we are going to see a Kog'Maw locked in as well as a Lulu. So already in the first two picks, Exertus starting to build up kind of a protect the hyper carry composition.
Yeah, and Lucian was the first pick for MnM. They favor that AD carry quite highly, but obviously Kog'Maw, having received changes, 6.3 made him an incredibly strong AD carry. So much so that we talked about PBE changes. Kog'Maw has had his base attack speed nerf to the lowest in the game, almost, not counting Graves, for instance.
That is on PBE, though, so that won't be live for this game. So Kog still in all of his might for this game. And this is something as well that we kind of saw coming in during the promotional tournament. We saw Kog'Maw's, when it was kind of like Renegades and Manalite. Those were the two teams, excuse me, those were the two teams that were looking at Kog'Maw, either banning it or picking it.
And Exertus,
now we're kind of... It seems like everyone sort of forgot about it a little bit, and Exertus have managed to pick that up.
What's interesting is when you talk to the players, and from that Choke video that we saw, we were talking about, we feel like some of the top teams, like Renegades and Manlight, had clued on to Kog'Maw pretty quickly. And it's interesting to note that most teams would have considered Exertus a pretty heavy third favorite, you know, or even up there with those top two when going forward in this tournament. And you're seeing something immediately similar here, that they are really key on this Kog'Maw. And they got a brilliant first rotation. Kog'Maw, Lulu, what more could you ask for when you're running a Kog'Maw composition?
I mean, you say they got a brilliant first rotation, their second rotation ain't so bad either. We've got a Braum and a Rumble. Over on the other side, we've not touched on the second and third pick for MnM either. They're locking in the Janna and the Gragas.
Janna and Gragas. Gragas we've seen Horo play almost consistently throughout both the qualification tournament and now the ESL Premiership season start. So, you know, he's going to continue the trend. It's going to be Gash and Slash taking what looks to be the Trundle into the top lane, and we'll have Half Past Thor, as we talked about it, on that Ziggs in the mid lane. So again, going with the slightly off-meta champion pool.
Yeah, so, I mean, interesting that they're sending the Trundle to the top lane as well. Trundle, it seems like a very edge of the meta champion. We see it occasionally, and it kind of can go to the support role. It can go up in that top lane. I'll be interested to see what it is against, whether this Rumble is going to be a top lane Rumble as normal, or we're kind of starting to see him go into the jungle as well.
Yeah, so LCK this morning, there were 2 games where Rumble was played in the jungle and did very well, won both games. The interesting thing about it is we were theory crafting as to why Rumble is so good in the jungle, and it's that his wave clear is, his jungle clear speed with runic echoes is ridiculous. With heavy CC lanes, or at least some form of CC in the lanes, he can be very effective in the gank, especially if you're managing that danger zone properly. And then when it comes to mid-game objective-focused team fights, he is super, super strong. He always has been, and he's just...
It's kind of like, well, when it comes to the mid-game objective fights, it's like having your top lane Rumble, except you don't have to rely on the teleport being there, because he's not your split pusher this time. He's not the guy that's in the offlane. He's always going to be at those objectives.
Yeah, and what we're seeing in general, especially in these Premiership games, is that mid-game team fights, we saw it with the Choke TCA game, can actually outright win you the game just through that sort of snowball principle. And it's interesting that this is something that has been coming out on LCK this morning. So if Exertus had an idea of this before LCK, then they've been practicing it for a little bit. If they hadn't, they picked it up from LCK this morning, decided they're going to run it this evening.
That was the next thing I was going to bring up. Kind of how premeditated is this composition, and how much of a kind of pick it up and run with it are we going to be seeing here? And I mean, this is definitely one of the teams that should be able to pick up and run with it to some extent.
If I know Plex, I think it's likely a pick up and run, because Plex is this kind of guy that says, I know, I'm a really good jungler, and he is a really good jungler. I can do this. I'll play this for a few games. I'll scrim with the team, play some solo queue games with it, see how it goes, and then I should be. I am
now the master of Rumble Jungle.
Yeah, but that's the thing about Plex. He can pick up a champion so quickly, Rumble Jungle is not exactly a new principle. It's a new principle to competitive play, but it's not something that we haven't seen before.
Yeah,
there has definitely been Rumble Jungles around for quite some time.
Regrettably, I've had them in my teams in solo queue before. But let's take a look at the compositions that we have built up here for ourselves. The final lock-in for Exertus is going to be that Zed. So Special looking to go very aggressive in this mid lane up against Half-Past Thor.
And also, Zed is one of those champions that has come back. He's never been gone from the meta.
No.
But the new item, Duskblade of Drakthar, it's a ridiculously good synergy with the Zed. Yeah. There's sort of a two-pronged fork here with this Duskblade of Drakthar. It synergizes with Deathmark really, really well. It has the same time cooldown as Deathmark, so the minute you apply physical damage after Deathmark, they both proc at basically the same time. So that's really, really good.
Yeah.
For Zed, because anything else to increase his burst through Deathmark is just going to make him more scary as an assassin.
And if you can get it to proc just before you actually use Deathmark as well, then does the damage then add up into your Deathmark total?
Unsure, actually. It's something I couldn't answer because I'm not totally sure. Maybe because I think it says all damage that is applied during Deathmark, so potentially.
If that's the case, then that is terrifying.
However, the double-edged sword to that is that it makes QSS so much more viable versus Zed, especially if you use the ultimate as your first engage, so the Duskblade procs at the same time as your Deathmark, because you can QSS both of them.
Yep.
So you QSS both the Duskblade proc and the Deathmark proc. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there. You have to play it well if a QSS comes up early. But like you said, let's have a look at these team compositions. MnM, Trundle, Gragas, Ziggs, Lucian and Janna. So they got a lot of good siege here. They've got decent disengage with the Gragas Cask and the Trundle Pillar. What is it exactly that we're thinking they're going to do here? In general, quite good zone control in team fights. They've got fairly good objective control with Half-Past Thor. Ziggs always provides an element of poke and objective control. But, eventually when you've got a Ziggs and a Lucian, you'll look to siege. You'll probably avoid smaller skirmishes, especially with a Zed. So again, I think this is likely going to be Trundle split pushing, and then when they group, they're just looking for the siege, they're looking for the poke, and then engaging when necessary, or you're not even engaging, just poking people away from turrets. When you pick Ziggs, he kind of defines your composition. You have to go for those bouncing bombs.
With any champion that you pick, you are going to kind of define yourself into those abilities. It's kind of how it works.
Oh, you're a cookie. You're a real cookie. But no, you're
Thanks,
right.
I guess.
It kind of defines the composition. You leave Trundle to split push here, but in general, poke with the Ziggs. then look to push down a tower with the Lucian and Ziggs, who both do pretty well in tower pushing scenarios.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And we'll see whether they're going to be in the kind of scenario where they can be pushing down those towers, because one of those flaws to having a siege composition is always going to be that if you're not winning, you ain't sieging.
Yeah, and speaking of winning, let's look at the other composition, because Exertus are definitely coming in as favourites to this match.
Yeah.
Again, you've got an element of Protect the Cogmore here, but there's only 3-part element. The Lulu, the Braum, and the Cogmore make up that Protect the Cogmore.
Yeah, let's get onto the map and see how they're going to be able to use this composition. I mean, you're saying how this Cogmore is kind of the hyper carry of this composition. They've got the Lulu to protect him as well as the Braum, but let's not forget that we have a Rumble and a Zed in this composition as well.
And what's so interesting about that is it provides what I like to call that scaling slide of a team composition, that you have 2 champions here that will negotiate your way through the mid game. And these are 2 super powerful mid game champions as well. Rumble, probably classically the most iconic mid game sort of mage, in the sense that he has such a huge impact over these team fights around Dragon, under turrets. You know, he's a really good element of a siege composition, a tower dive composition as well. And then you have Zed, you know, a very mid-game orientated assassin. He can split push later on. Should be able to effectively kill Half-Past Thor at every point during the game. Even with the, I mean, he does have the exhaust, so he will have to be careful. But as long as, you know, he plays it well, he should be able to 1v1 the Ziggs at every point in the game. So
yeah.
Again, you have 2 champions that will help negotiate your way through that early game, provide mid-game control, and then allow you just to move towards that Protect the Toaster composition, which is going to be the real element of carry from this composition from Exertus Esports.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, we'll see whether or not they're going to be able to get to that kind of end game scenario that they're going to be looking for. The trial by fire for MnM begins here. Smoky Lemon and Prosper are going to be able to take away those Krugs. And on the other side of the map, we're going to see Tundra and Toaster doing the same to the Gromp. Both bottom lanes going to be starting off very, very standard. I'm intrigued to see how Half-Past Thor deals with this lane, because I'm certain that this is a lane he has played a million times before.
Oh yeah, 100%, especially in solo queue, as we know Half-Past Thor. Interestingly, MnM are in a tough position here, because they may have wanted to lane swap the Trundle away from... Oh, level 2 already hit here. Yeah,
absolutely. We're going to see the exhaust onto Prosper. Smoky Lemon trying to trade the damage straight back onto Toaster, but nothing too crazy coming out.
MnM are in an odd position, because they may have wanted a lane swap away from the Lulu Trundle matchup, which can be pretty difficult for the Trundle to deal with. But they've actually ended up, you know, wanting to make sure they apply pressure to the Cogmore Braum. What is so interesting is that, talking to the Manalite coach, Frozen Dawn, he believes that the Cogmore Braum lane is the strongest lane in the game right now. Just in the sense that when you apply the stun, then use Bio-Arcane Barrage, it's probably the AD carry that procs that concussive blows the quickest out of any other champion. So, and also, you know, you provide the element of protection for Cogmore with the Unbreakable.
I think another, like, it's kind of, again, a two-pronged fault on that one, because not only do you proc that the fastest, but then once you've procced that stun as well, you're going to get so much damage down for free from such a long distance. And as well, you're going to be able to just sit behind that Unbreakable the entire time. It's kind of like essentially just free trades if you can set it up correctly. But here we go. Horo looking for those ganks. He's heading down to the bot lane, but he is going to be spotted out by a ward and decides to just back away.
Yeah, and you're already seeing Gash and Slash struggle versus Zergoth in this top lane. It is something that we expected to see. It's not a favourable matchup for the Trundle. It's very difficult to get on top of the Lulu.
Yeah.
And he's just having to be pushed to tower here, farm where he can. He's using that Tiller just so he can get to the CS, as Prosper lost that.
Oh, yeah, there was a fight going down in the bottom lane. Toaster tanking up a lot of damage, though. Smoky Lemon really doing work against that Cogmore Tundra. Not going to be there for the Unbreakable. He was kind of going a little bit too deep onto Prosper.
The sentence that I wanted to complete before I realized that something was going on was Prosper lost that flash very early on, so he's becoming a target for Tundra to apply the concussive blows to. What's interesting is I really like the way that Smoky Lemon dealt with that, as Zergoth is probably just going to get away from a gank from Horo here. We'll have to see.
Zergoth is going to be blocked by that pillar. It doesn't quite force him the whole way around. Going to be slowed by that red buff, but as you say, we'll be able to get away with that one. I mean, we were mentioning this top lane matchup before, how it kind of pretty heavily favors Lulu. So
the
far,
bot lane, though.
CS is absolutely fine. Prosphere is going to go down, though, as Plex has gone for his first gank. And it's not often that we see a Nocturnal Plex gank fail, and this time will not be the first.
Yeah, and I was just praising Smoky Lemon and Prosphere for dealing with that sort of early pressure applied to Prosphere, with Smoky Lemon stepping up and applying pressure to Toaster as Tundra was unable to provide that Unbreakable to defend against him. But the vision control, obviously, because they've been so far pushed into their lane, as soon as they started to push back towards the middle of the lane, they had no vision control in that river and allowed Nocturnal Plex to wander in. And that's probably something that was spied out by the Exertus lineup. They said there is no vision control here. Just walk in as Gash and Slash goes down, but Zergoth overstepped.
Yeah, he has indeed. Horo should be able to finish this one off with relative ease. Going to get that red buff down any second now. I mean, if you walk under tower, that is going to still be a kill to Horo nonetheless. So, but I mean, the solo lanes right now for Exertus are just looking dominant.
Oh my word.
Up in the top lane and in the mid lane, both. They're just being solo forced out of lane.
Yeah, and look at the CS difference starting to open up here. Hex Drinker finished 4 special, and unfortunately Seeker's Arm Guard yet to be completed. So that's a mini spike that will go in favor of special as this lane develops. See, 42 to 28 CS. How often is it you say that you see Half Past Thor behind on CS? It's something that we talked about just in that previous game build-up.
But then on the other side of things, Smoky Lemon is doing the exact same thing to Toaster. Take a look at that CS lead in the bottom lane. So maybe Smoky Lemon on this Lucian can be the shining beacon of light for the Molotovs and Marshmallows for this game. Yeah,
my issue with the Molotovs and Marshmallows composition is I'm kind of failing to see where it beats out Exertus.
Like at what point in the game?
Yeah, at what point they're going to find an area where they'll be stronger, because in that mid game, you know, you're going to have Lucian hitting a better spike than Toaster. I guess Ziggs in a sense, Horo will be doing a bit of damage, but you have 2 really awesome champions on Exertus to tide them over with that Rumble, who's already picking up good gold. I mean, look at the difference in CS and jungle as well. That is how Rumble clears right now. Super strong clear from the Rumble in the jungle.
Yeah, the Rumble in the jungle is looking pretty darn strong. Horo, again, hovering around these lanes. This is something we saw from him in the promotional tournament, kind of searching for these ganks, but when he can't find an opportunity, he seems to struggle with the decision-making required there. Like, what's your next port of call if the gank isn't going to happen?
Yeah, and actually he's waiting in that tri-brush area as he's been cleaned out with a pink, but Plex is waiting. It's level 6 as well. This could be explosive in this bot lane.
Yeah, quite literally. But not from Horo, as he's not got that explosive cask up just yet. Plex just biding his time here, waiting for Smoky Lemon to go in. Does land the slow. Smoky Lemon going to relentless pursuit out of there. And it looks like they get away safely from this one.
You felt like Plex had just kind of waited too long in that situation.
Yeah.
He went a little bit early, and unfortunately Lucian had practically every summoner up. As Half Past Thor takes so much damage. Oh, Deathmark!
Deathmark is going to go down onto Half Past Thor, but there's no energy remaining on special, so we can't really finish that one off. Half Past Thor completely out of mana, though, so special should be able to just shove this underneath the tower, and Half Past Thor going to kind of just do what he can to get the remainder of this CS. Going to throw out that bouncing bomb, but it's just going to end up denying him a couple in the end, and Special can just relentlessly push this lane on in. Thor has now grabbed himself that blue buff, though.
Yes, he will start to be able to clear waves more effectively. I think he saw the Thunderlord's proc there and thought, ooh, I'd actually done a little bit more damage than I thought.
Yeah.
And Plex is now wandering, and he's going to take away this red buff as well, and you're starting to see... I mean, I've been really impressed with the heat management from Plex as well. He's been keeping it perfect in the jungle.
Yeah, he certainly has, but up in the top lane, Zergoth is in a little bit of a pickle. Horo is going in for the gank, but Gash and Slash completely out of mana. And once again, Zergoth on that Lulu just going to be completely safe from these kinds of scenarios. Interestingly, going for a Catalyst first.
Look at the position from Nocturnal Plex in the bot lane.
Yeah, Tundra taking a whole lot of damage. Plex is coming on in, though, and that's going to be Smoky Lemon.
Wow.
Knocked up and caught in the equalizer. Prosphere now the next target. Plex is going for the dive, though. He ain't stopping just yet. Prosphere might be able to get a kill out of this one if he can play it right, and he does so. Tundra gets incredibly low as well. We've now got a red buff Janna for the side of MnM.
Yeah, they did get the kill, and the combo onto Smoky Lemon left him unable to use summoners whatsoever. A perfect sort of combo between the Equalizer and that Glacial Fissure from the Braum. It was really fantastic. I'm kind of questioning the dive onto the Janna, especially a Janna of that level of health with potentially exhaust and heal up.
The thing is, as well, for the dive was it was kind of... Rumble they didn't seem sure about it. It was like Plex was going in, but Tundra and Toaster were like,
they were too far behind as well. They were
like,
too far behind as well, and also the fact that he'd overheated, so he couldn't use any of his abilities. You've got to question that. If Plex potentially giving up a bit of free gold, it is only over to the Janna though, so not the end of the world.
I mean, if you're
Special,
we're going to see Special gets a solo kill onto half past Thor, and Horo. That was while he was being ganked. Special managing to get a 2 versus 1 there, and actually bullies Horo away as well.
And I talked about previously what I thought was the best way to beat MnM, and it's the sense that you kind of had to pressure half past Thor. I feel like when he's not on that Zillion, he has such less impact, I suppose, in the game. We saw it on his Ziggs previously. You felt like he didn't really do much.
I think this is one of the things that you kind of... We've been saying how, obviously, he plays these off-meta champions, and that's going to give him kind of somewhat of an edge in terms of just people not maybe knowing the matchups. But on the other side of that, you've got kind of the reason that those champions aren't meta. It's just a matter of kind of lack of optimality. That's not a word, but we do have 4 people down here in the bottom lane for Exertus.
MnM don't look like they want to get caught out again. They know they don't have that vision, and they're going to start to wander up. Here comes the Equalizer. Yeah,
not the greatest Equalizer I've ever seen, to be quite honest. And that is just going to be the bottom lane forced on in. That should be a dragon anyway for... I nearly say FM every single time.
I actually have been doing the same thing. I'm glad you feel the same way, because you just associate Tundra with FM, don't you? It's just part of how long his legacy has been with that organization. But it is indeed Exertus on the red side. Interestingly, that could have... If MnM had been in a position to contest that dragon using that Equalizer, that could have proved fatal for the Exertus lineup. Had MnM been a little bit more confident, been a little bit closer in terms of contesting in the early portions of this game, because that Equalizer is so powerful when you come towards these kind of enclosed fights around the dragon in this mid game. But you can see the vision control of the river is absolutely impeccable right now for Exertus, and that's kind of the reason why MnM didn't want to overextend in that bot lane. They're too scared to venture into the river, and they don't want to extend to a point when they're going to get caught out by yet another gank from that area.
No, absolutely not. Smoky Lemon completely out of mana here in the bottom lane, so it's going to be very difficult for them to continue trading. Look at this, Zergoth again, just bullying Gash and Slash out of this top lane. Rod of Ages is now complete for him as well, so he's going to start to scale up towards that late game. We do see Horo down in this bottom lane again, trying to find something to help his bottom lane with, but not really going to find these opportunities. And so far, it's kind of just felt like Exertus are on the front foot purely just through mechanical ability.
Individual play, and actually a lot of it's to do with Plex as well. I think he's been really fantastic on this Rumble. You can see already playing it to a pretty decent efficiency. And we talked about MnM having a trial by fire. I don't think they expected it literally with the Rumble pick.
Trial by barbecue coming through right now. And we're going to see Prospect trying to defend this tower. Look at the chunk onto him. That is going to be the tower defended for now, though. But 4,000 gold lead already at 12 minutes here in favor of Exertus. And just look at that 40 CS lead in the mid lane in favor of Special, who really, Special has been fully stepping up to the plate right now.
Oh, 100%.
He's impressing me on this side.
Yeah, and he's actually going to be either going for the Ghost Blade or going for the upgrades more and more Mortius. I imagine it'll be the Ghost Blade just because he is ahead and it's such an awesome item to snowball from. A lot of people have said we like Duskblade of Drakthar, but actually we just find that the Ghost Blade is far more optimal and also reliable in that sense. And Ziggs loses his blue buff, which is actually a pretty big deal for Harpas Thor, because in a lot of the games that we see him farm like a monster, generally it's because he has blue buff and can just continuously spam his abilities and waves.
Yeah, and this isn't a game where he's going to be able to go for that Athenes either. There's nowhere near... Or I mean, I guess there's enough AP if you look at the little special looking for the all-in there. Thor just gets the heck on out of there with the satchel charge. But I mean, with the Rumble and the Lulu, I guess you could kind of see that, but really, against a Zed in lane, you don't want to build that as your first item, and it typically is a first item if you build it at all.
And actually Toaster now finishing that Guinsoo's Rage Blade. That's actually pretty huge because you'll start to see, once you get the high stacks of the Guinsoo's, he does a lot of damage with both his Voidoos and the ultimate, which I can never remember the name of.
The Living Artillery.
The Living Artillery, yeah.
Tundra, sorry, has been caught out in this bottom lane. He's going to be able to jump away, though.
I always want to say Bioarcane Barrage because it kind of feels like the same thing.
I feel like they should be the other way around,
yeah,
to be quite honest. Yeah, I've always thought that too, but unfortunately, Rito, please, Toaster123, going to be using that Living Artillery to try and poke down Prosphere. Tundra is here as Plex sneaks on into the lane. This brush has been pink warded, so Smoky Lemon isn't going to be aware of this right now.
Plex has had to do very little else in any other lane.
Oh, here comes the equalizer. Prosphere tanking up a whole lot of damage. Look at his health bar melt. That's going to be the flash forward. Toaster trying to finish this one off, but they just don't quite find their target in the meantime. Look at this top lane. Zergoth, he might not have the biggest CS lead, but he's already picked up 2 towers. We're 15 minutes in here.
Again, I said it's a really tough matchup for the Trundle. You kind of do nothing against the Lulu, and she will just consistently push you to turret because of the way the Glitter Lance works.
Mid lane turret in the mid lane.
Exactly. Mid lane turret rotated round. Here comes the Ziggs ultimate.
Yeah, that's just going to kind of clear the wave. Zergoth does arrive as well. Going to be able to shield one of those tower shots. It does mean that the tower is still here for a little while.
And this is what we talked about with Rumble. They could even potentially look for a dive as they all rotate round. Rumble is so good at diving with that ultimate as well.
Yeah, it is going to be on cooldown for now, though, because they just used it in the bottom lane. But I don't think they need the ultimate right now. They're so far ahead, they can just pressure this without, and they should be able to finish this Tundra. Going to be able to block a bit of damage there with the Unbreakable Plex. Going to get knocked up, though, and they're actually looking for the fight. Smoky Lemon gets knocked up by the Glacial Fissure, and that's a perfect disengage coming out from Exertus's Toaster with the Living Artillery. Finishes off one onto Half Past Thor.
And that was about 15-10% health left, and that's how much Living Artillery can do.
Yeah, it was like 200, 300 damage, I think.
At max Guinsoo stacks, it really, really synergizes with Cogmore's kit. I've been impressed with all of Exertus so far. They've looked very strong. Plex especially having a great time with what has been a fairly novel concept to a lot of professional League of Legends play in the form of that Rumble jungle. He's definitely had an impact on the game that you may not have expected. And honestly, he's had a pretty easy time of it. There's only been one lane effectively that he's had to focus in that bot lane because top lane has been so dominant, mid lane has been so dominant. The bot lane was the only real area that you'd be looking to gain any sort of meaningful advantage. And Special now heading into that split push role. He has picked up that Dusk Blade, so that was what he was aiming for there. And is now potentially going to finish that Caulfield's Warhammer into something else like that Ghostblade. Yeah,
absolutely. And here we go. Special just... He's going to be so hard for anyone to deal with this right now. Like, who do you send to this split push lane to stop this? Split push Z is something that we see basically every time we see a Z. It's kind of what you do on this champion at this stage in the game. But if you're this far ahead on the Z, like, nobody can really contest this. Half Past Thor is just going to be trying his best to clear out these waves, but again, he's got no blue buff. Still hasn't finished the first item.
Rift Herald being done by Exertus right now. They will take that away, give it over to the Cogmore. Really good for sieging in that mid lane, but he's going to head up to the top lane with it.
Mid lane tower's gone down as well now.
And this is interesting because it kind of forces Half Past Thor to deal with the split push from Special, but that kind of ruins the MnM composition.
Well, you say he's going to deal with the split push. Zergoth heading on down here to try and force the hands here. Teleport going to come out from Gash and Slash to try and turn this in MnM's favor, but that's going to be a nice deathmark to dodge away from the knock-up. Special, look at the damage onto Prosphere. Dustblade is going to proc. There's the equalizer. Prosphere trying his best to escape, but he won't be so lucky. Special with a nice flash over the wall. That's going to keep him safe for now. Half Past Thor trying to chase on, but I don't think he'll manage it. Gash and Slash is going to be the next target, who just gets burnt to a crisp as Plex charges on forward and picks himself up his hat trick, and that is going to be 2 kills for 0 as Toaster just melts the minion wave.
Wow, Special juggled everybody right there and managed to juke out very effectively. I wish I could see that again because that was an incredible set of mechanical plays coming from all of Exertus' roster, but you also saw the power of Rumble there in full glory in an area where they want to fight in these small enclosed spaces in the jungle. This is perfect for Rumble. The vision allowed them to set this up. Special split push brought MnM together to deal with it, and that's what Rumble wanted, a mid-game team fight. You split push with Zed, people come to deal with them, and instead of just trying to take an objective elsewhere, you can collapse and then try and fight on top of it. And that's exactly what they did, and Rumble in the jungle, that's what he's looking for at this point in time. He's looking for the sort of collapses in that jungle side, because on the map.
You could say he's looking for those rumbles
Yeah, in the jungle. Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to say it. I felt like I'd said it enough.
Low-hanging fruit right there.
Yeah.
Well, Special might have found himself in his own rumble right now. Going to go for that death mark onto Prosper, but could be in trouble, actually. Does a huge chunk of damage right there, but he will finally fall. That's all 5 members here for MnM, though. Zergoth having to wild growth onto himself here. The Mega Inferno Bomb will chunk him on down, but there's just not the damage to finish him off right now as Toaster is looking to turn this one around. Plex has found the backline, and he gets one onto Smoky Lemon, and he's looking for more as well. They've managed to make it to their Nexus, though, as Half Past Thor, the last man remaining, left out to dry by his team, and that is going to be another 2 kills going over to Exertus.
Another case of Zed split pushing, buying time, and the team collapses to fight. This is not the kind of classic split push strategy you would see employed by a lot of teams. Usually, like I said, they would focus on something else while that teammate buys time. But what you're seeing here from Exertus is they have the teamfight composition with the Rumble. They have Kog'Maw hitting item spikes in the form of that Runaan's Hurricane and the Guinsoo's Rageblade. So they just come along with the time that's been bought for them.
God,
oh my lordy.
Yeah. I don't even have time to commentate that. That's with 2 items. Toaster just literally melts down the support.
Again, I don't think Prosper fully respected the fact that he would just be stunned up in an instant with the Kog'Maw, especially with the bioaccurate
and on the equalizer as well.
Yeah,
so.
It's a 13k advantage at 20 minutes. I think potentially the biggest advantage we've seen across this week, last weekend, and the Premiership so far. Obviously, there's only been 1 game in the Premiership so far. But, you know, again, this is just a fantastic way of playing a very unique composition. They just force the teamfights because no one can deal with Special, so people come to deal with him, more than one, and then Exertus just collapse as Half Past Thor. Wow.
Oh my goodness, the damage coming out from Zerg. The thing is, there isn't a member here for Exertus that isn't terrifying.
It isn't terrifying, yeah.
Look at the farm as well on Special. He's managing to hit that 10 CS per minute mark.
So, Half Past Thor, burn his flash, force back. What does Exertus do? They go for Baron.
Yeah. And they should be able to just about secure this one. They decide to back away. They don't want to start it off just yet, making sure they have complete vision dominance. But look at this, 2 people being sent down to deal with Special. And, I mean, I mentioned his farm. We were singing Half Past Thor's praises when it comes to getting that 10 CS per minute. This time, he's the one on the back foot.
Yeah, exactly. And the 10 CS per minute is lying in the form of Special.
Yeah.
And look at the items for Kog'Maw as well. Toaster going towards that Sterak's Gauge, it seems. So that'll be a super interesting item to pick up on a Kog'Maw when you already have the Lulu to provide that element of protection for him. This Kog'Maw will likely be tankier than anyone on the team. It's a really, unique prospect having the Sterak's Gauge here available for AD carries. And when you're running a protect the AD carry composition with an item that is as gold efficient as Sterak's Gauge, it makes complete sense to go for that item. And this is just looking bleaker and bleaker for MnM because, like we said, Kog'Maw is what... You know when I talk about late-game threat champions and Caitlyn being a decent late-game threat champion.
Yeah.
When you really have a late-game composition, you need a carry like Kog'Maw or like Vayne, for instance, that basically can carry the late game by themselves and are facilitated by other champions, like the Lulu. And just having that Sterak's Gauge makes it that much easier. So this is one of those late-game compositions that the later it goes, it is just going to be better. Even though Ziggs does do well in the late game, Kog'Maw is just that much of a monster that it's not even going to matter.
I love how Zergoth and Special here have essentially swapped roles right now. You've obviously got Special going off and split pushing, and Zergoth is now just playing the mid lane Lulu, essentially just wave after wave, pushing these minions underneath the towers with the wave clear that Lulu does have at her fingertips. Here we go. Plex just going to be stealing away whatever he wants right now. He has complete free reign. And let's just take a quick look at the fact that there is a 13,000 gold lead right now for Exertus. This is kind of already feeling like territory that's going to be incredibly difficult to come back from. We mentioned how it was trial by fire, but it's already going to be Special finding another kill. Half Past Thor can't quite jump away, and that's
a great
double
ultimate
going through onto the Zed. Let's turn that into 3 kills as well as Toaster grabs one onto Gash and Slash. And honestly, this is looking like an inhibitor. It's looking like it might just be curtains, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I feel like it's game, set, match, and it's been like that for a little bit now. Exertus have just looked dominant. I'm really, really impressed with Tundra this game.
Yeah.
I think he's a contest for MVP just because those unbreakables.
Oh my goodness, Plex is wanting to argue that case right now as he goes on in, and that's another kill going through onto Special, just diving forwards and picking it up with the Razor Shuriken. There's a top lane inhibitor.
It's been very difficult to pick a person on the side of Exertus that has been the MVP. Obviously, Special is your standout obvious, but Tundra's unbreakables, they've been some of the best best Braum ultimates that I have seen for all of our series so far since the qualification tournament. They've hit multiple members. They've always been really key to locking the fight up for long enough so that the rest of the team can jump in on them as Prosfair.
Speaking of fights, Half Past Thor is going to go down to Zergoth, and we see Prosfair just narrowly escape within an inch of his life right there. And look at this, just forcing the minions underneath these mid lane towers. Exertus are going to decide to back away now. They've decided 2 inhibitors is enough, although Zergoth, I'm not sure if they are, because Special goes in with the death mark, and he does manage to find himself a kill. Jumps back to his shadow and might just be able to escape as Zergoth gives him that wild growth. Explosive cast won't knock him back, but actually Special decides to go back in. He's looking for Prosfair, but he is going to get shut down finally by Gash and Slash. Zergoth now going to try and escape. Gash and Slash flashing forwards, but doesn't have anything to really lock anything down.
I mean, Special right there. Yes, he died, but how good did he just look in that small engage? Managed to pick up Smoky Lemon, even through the exhaust, those final shurikens doing the job, and then put pressure onto Prosfair, forcing him to burn his flash as well.
I feel like he could have got away there.
Yes, definitely, but you know, what was his need to? He's not exactly like going to lose anything off this.
He's going for highlight reel at this point, I think. But we are going to see the teleport come out from Zergoth, looking to trap the enemy members. Look how fast that Lulu is with the Whimsy on top of Home Guard. Prosfair has been slowed. He's going to get locked up, and he is going to go down. A Glitter Lance should be enough. A solid Giggle should do the trick, and that is going to be the Baron given over. And that one certainly will taste purple. The Mega Inferno Bomb not going to be able to finish that one off quite yet. We are going to see Plex is there, so the smite should be available. Can they finish this one off?
Oh,
it's going to get stolen by Horo. He does manage to steal away. The Baron tries to get the recall off. Accepts his fate right there as Thor is looking for the kills, but the flash is going to get them to safety. They may have stolen the Baron, but they've only got 1 man alive with it.
Yeah, I think that's a small victory right now for MnM. I really don't think it's going to be game right here, to be frank. But I'm going to be honest. That again was kind of almost MVP by Tundra once more. The body slam from Horo was blocked yet again by an ultimate from Tundra. So.
We don't need to commentate this.
Yeah.
This is just killing the body fountain.
This is just a bit of a flair by the Exertus lineup, as they're not pushing onto this Nexus too hard right now. Special is kind of toying with his food, you would say.
Yeah, absolutely. The minions are going to finish this one themselves, I feel, and that is going to be 420 blazing it in favor of Exertus Esports, taking their first game of the entire season.
MnM's Trial by Fire, they came out in a bag of ashes, unfortunately. That was an absolute schooling by the new Exertus roster, and every single member performing amazingly. Special, your standout player, but honestly, when it comes